Well, hello everyone, and welcome to our program today. Let me kind of explain what's going to happen here. We're going to record the usual Billy Dees podcast, except we are going to show the recording live through. Today we are going through LinkedIn. We are also going live on YouTube and also on Twitter. We won't be able to interact, excuse me, with a lot of you during the podcast because there's too many platforms here, and we want to concentrate on the program. Afterwards, however, if you do tweet us, and you can do so at Billy Dees on Twitter. Once we are done with the podcast, we can go back and we can certainly answer your tweets to the best that we can, and acknowledge some of your points and some of your other things. So we're just about good to go. I'm going to go ahead and start the audio podcast, and obviously this is kind of a behind the scenes type thing. You can watch us record the podcast, and the podcast itself will be available just about on all the major podcasting platforms. So without any more ado, we'll go ahead and record our podcast today. All right. Well, hello, everyone, and welcome to the podcast. I am absolutely thrilled that you are here. If you have never joined the podcast before, let me just tell you, we are primarily a commentary and an interview podcast. And a lot of times we do topical things. And today is one of those days. On the studio line with me today, I have Jack Casey. What's going on, Jack?
What's up, man? I am thrilled to be here as well, sir.
All right. Well, I'm glad to hear it. Took the words right out of my mouth. What we're going to talk about today is there's a lot happening right now with social media. And even if you are not necessarily a social media fan or an active user, this is getting to the point now where it's going to impact your life. And if you feel that that's not true, I'm going to say at this point, you are denying reality. Okay, because we're getting into now a whole different field, a whole different maybe area is a better word of technology, and where things are going now. You simply cannot ignore the beast in the room, because there's a lot that's going to change in the coming year or two here. That's pretty significant, actually. I do want to shout out to the app called GoodPods. Recently, I had some rankings come out on that, and we were pretty high, and I'm very thrilled with that. But I also want to acknowledge that the app GoodPods has done a lot for independent podcasts. And I feel that's very important because, quite frankly, a lot of the big guys now, they're just simply taking TV shows, whether they happen on cable or the afternoon talk shows, and just stripping the audio off of them and, planting them in so people have the convenience of listening to the show that maybe they can't watch. And that's fine. That's great. But this is really about content creators. Podcasting was built by small independent users, and it has become the giant media landscape that it is today, largely on the backs of independent creators. And GoodPods is doing a very good job of giving them a platform, and we're very glad to be a part of that. Okay, unless you have been living under a rock, you have heard about Facebook, and we'll call it a rebranding. It's becoming Meta, okay, and it's going to be more inclusive to a number of other different platforms. For example, Facebook currently operates Instagram, which is probably one of their crown jewels in terms of a younger demographic. Okay. WhatsApp is another one that is gigantic. Oculus. And I'm going to talk about that here in a moment, because to me, that's one of the more significant ones. There's a couple of here that I'm not too familiar with. Live Rail, Threadsy. I'm not too familiar with those.
Never even heard of them.
Okay, yeah, they're out there, and how exactly they're going to be utilized is another thing. I'm going to say, in comparison with Instagram and WhatsApp, they paid pennies for them. So my guess is that they're not extremely large platforms. But here's the deal: what's been happening with Facebook? Okay, first of all, like I always say, survival of the fittest is kind of a misnomer. What really determines whether we're talking about social media or whether we're talking about some sort of a business, what really determines longevity is your ability to adapt to change.
Hmm.
And quite frankly, whether or not Facebook has had some issues, let's say with public relations, to say the least, whether or not that was happening is almost beside the point, because the time for Facebook is starting to come to an end. Now, I don't necessarily that is not to be interpreted as it's going to go away anytime soon. That's not true. However, the demographics for Facebook are getting older and older. Younger people are abandoning the platform in droves. And for the older people that are still on Facebook, quite frankly, they're leaving as well. They don't like hearing about some of the politics and some of the other things that has gone on the behind the scenes in the business world involving the platform. And quite frankly, a lot of people that are left there are left there with the attitude, well, I have to be on it for work. Or,
Hmm.
well, that's where my friends are, and I don't particularly like it, but I guess I got to be there.
That's kind of
So
me.
it's yeah, it's kind of hold your nose to be in the room. No, you very rarely hear someone say, "Man, I can't wait to check out my Facebook. I can't wait to get on Facebook tonight." It's just not happening. Those words are not coming out of your mouth. If you know you're living, and some of those people that have been on the platform for a long time and they're an older demographic, they don't like change. And if you're an active internet user, the chances that you are making Facebook a priority is very, very small. That's the reality. Okay. So I feel that this change was something that they had to do. But the caveat to that is this: with what's been happening lately with the whistleblower scandal and these other things, when you want to rebrand something, ideally you want to rebrand it while you're still hot. Okay. Because then you can catapult it to the next level. Now this is becoming a necessity. This is becoming something that is perceived anyway as something that they had to do. Whether it was or not, you can debate it all day long. But the fact of the matter is that this is becoming perceived as crisis management. This is
Yeah, they
something
didn't
that's
really time it the best, did they? It seemed like
no,
some kind of distraction, like, look over there. We're not doing shady things.
exactly. And there was a couple of memes that I really enjoyed. That, like, for example, they said there's a new trend now. If you want to, become something that you're not, you just call it the name. For example, Volkswagen wants to be Tesla, you know, and so it's a it's a s- here's I'm going to say this, and I'll kind of throw your reaction to you, Jack. I don't know what form Facebook is going to have in the coming months, in the coming year. But no matter what happens, I feel that Facebook historically is going to be one of the biggest what could have beens of all time. Okay. And what I mean by that is this: if you go back 10 or 15 years in the early days of that company, if they really made a commitment, as they say, to bringing people together, if they really made a commitment to small business, and that's another thing everybody's all worried about now. If the Facebook structure starts to change, if the audience starts to leave Facebook, a lot of small businesses don't even have websites anymore. They have a Facebook business page.
All
Well,
right.
trust me, they'll go somewhere else, whether it's LinkedIn or somewhere else. They will go somewhere else. They will be okay. But if their plan was to really help the small business person, if their plan was to bring people together, if their plan was to do all these things, they still could have been a multi-billion-dollar company without having all the problems that they did, whether it be with monitoring your activity while you're off the app, or all the things that have gone on behind the scenes now. And if you want to check out the whistleblower, I suggest you go ahead and Google that up, read about it. all those things didn't need to happen for them to be a multi-billion-dollar company. They still could have been a very successful billion-dollar company and still did the public some good. They still could have changed the way we consider the internet in a very positive way. And that moment is gone. It's never going to return. Even if they manage in the coming years to improve their image, it will never be what could have been. It's
Yeah, a
just
lot of
like that.
people really do
Yeah.
seem mad at the Zuckerberg guy.
Yeah. If there's that saying about trust, it's like a mirror. You can break a mirror and put it back together, but it's always got that mfing crack in it.
Mhm.
And it's and that's the caveat that moving forward, no matter how they manage to turn this into a positive thing, there's always going to be that crack. There's always going to be that asterisk by their name. Can you really trust what's happening here? So anyway, that's my take on it. What's your spin?
Well, they kind of. I feel like one thing that you brought up small businesses.
Yeah,
A lot of the bigger ads and advertising companies seem to edge them out and crowd them out a lot too. I mean, if you scroll through the feed, you don't see a whole lot of local stuff anymore. You
that's
know,
true.
so I think a lot of people are going to start either moving toward. I'm sure Twitter would probably want to step in to fill the void since they're also very location based. I could see Instagram doing the same, but I mean, there's also Etsy, which people are also moving away from, I guess, because they've been charging a lot more for store space, stuff like that.
Okay.
Um, Facebook on its face started out as a really good idea, a
Yeah,
way
sure.
to network between college kids. Like my account's so old that I had it back when I had to have a university email to use it. And I feel like part of what started its downslide was when they allowed just anybody to get on it. And with the internet becoming more and more accessible to people who aren't just old school nerds like me and you,
Right.
um, that's when you start getting the rabble rousers. And I feel like they made a bit of a misstep, tweaking their algorithm so that it did create bubbles, which is what everybody's complaining about now. Um, but things changed. The name change for the parent company. I mean, that's not the first time a major company's done it. Google did
Right.
that with Alphabet a long time ago. When they had some kind of scandal or another going on. I think when people were first starting to wake up to the fact that, yeah, if it's free, then you are the product.
Yeah.
But I don't see Facebook completely dying out. Because people will still use it. I mean, there's lazy people like me who don't want like 9 million accounts and 9 million different websites to keep track
Yeah.
of. And I think also too, I think people are starting to wake up to how toxic social media can be as
Yeah.
well, both individually and for society. Like my mom's a counselor and she works with a lot of kids who are, middle school aged and up. And she said that Instagram is one of the most toxic things she's ever come across because she has a lot of clients who get bullied on it or who, post
No,
pictures that are
sure.
ignored, which
Hmm.
is another thing that bothers people for, not getting their fake internet points. And um, I don't know, this meta thing, it seems like very conceptual at the moment because I was sitting watching the video presentation. It's over an hour. I got about halfway through before I got bored.
Yeah.
But a lot of it doesn't seem like it's going to be either accessible to everybody because it's going to require equipment like the Oculus, which that's about $250 now, right? For the Oculus headset,
Yeah.
something
I'm
like
not
that.
sure. Yeah, I'm not sure. I was gonna. That's part of a component. I was kind of gonna lean you because I really, as much as I am into technology, I got electronics all over the place. For whatever reason, um, the gaming bug, so to speak, has not bitten me. I just there's been a few games I'll play when I'm at somebody's house or whatever, and but the idea that I'm going to sit there through all night playing games, that's just not going to happen. I don't know if I have the attention span deficit or what.
I'm gonna
However,
I'm gonna convert
the
you one of these days, Billy.
okay, fine. But the technology related to gaming, the technology related to virtual reality is going to make its presence known. That part of it is going to grow out of that little lane that it's in. It's going to become, well, real estate companies, for example, are already using virtual reality to show houses that are in different states to different clients.
Right.
And I feel as that technology improves, as you don't require the horsepower to run it on both ends, I feel that that technology is going to make a statement. That technology is going to come into our lives. Now, how it's going to be utilized is another thing entirely, which is kind of where I wanted to go with Facebook,
Well,
because
gaming related, when I was watching the presentation, because that was the
yeah,
part I paid the most attention to.
okay,
A lot of the things that they were showing are already exist on other platforms.
yeah,
I mean, like the fitness thing where they had like the little fitness game or whatever. People already do that with the Nintendo Switch.
okay,
Like there's the Wii Fit game that was big on the Wii, and then there's the other one with that circle thing. The name's not coming to me, but it's like an aerobics exercise, but they put like a video game in it too, so you can use certain exercise moves to cast spells or take out enemies or whatever.
okay,
Um, and it kind of struck me as kind of the same as that Google platform that they were trying to do that didn't really go so well
okay,
a couple of years ago, Google Stadia, where
okay,
they were like, yeah, you can play these games online, but I mean, a lot of people already have the consoles. A lot of gamers are already going to own these consoles, and you're not really going to draw in much of a new crowd for it.
yeah,
And I don't really see the benefit of wearing an Oculus headset to play chess with somebody online when you can
yeah,
already do that. Like, just go on chess.com. It's totally free, and you can play with anyone around the world. Um, and it kind of seemed like they were trying to put like a new layer of polish on, an house that already exists,
yeah,
like you're trying to get their property values up by, painting the house to stand out. And it didn't really
yeah,
seem like that to me.
yeah.
So,
Yeah, I kind of feel that the potential for what you can do with that technology when you have the resources of Facebook is probably their saving grace. It's their crown jewel right now, and
mhm.
it's not just related to gaming, as it were. I
Well,
mean
no, they've
that
got the capital that they can pour into this,
sure, absolutely,
which a lot of
and
other companies don't have that just behemoth bank account that Facebook has to try new things out. And if they fail, they fail. But, you're going to score a hit eventually.
yeah, and a lot of the talk around the metaverse, sounds like it's inviting to developers and things like that. And quite frankly, here's where it comes down to trust again. If I was in charge of a department right now, or I was involved with a company that was doing developing, would I want to get involved with one of those platforms as opposed to, let's say, if I really wanted to collaborate, would I want to get involved in something that was more open source? Okay.
Right.
I'm going to say the trust for me and, investing hard earned time and dollars into something, I'm not sure I want to be a part of that metaverse yet. Now, I just, the trust, well, consider this with what's been going on with tracking and the spying and everything else that's not and not just related to Facebook, but all the apps. Okay. With some of those things that have been going on with your behavior being so closely monitored, imagine inviting even more advanced technology into your biosphere.
That was the
Which
point I was going to bring up.
yeah. Okay, go ahead and expand on it. Go ahead.
Well, I'm just saying, like, given Facebook and Twitter and the other companies' track record with selling information and data about everything you already do, I mean, as somebody who owns a company that has, say, confidential or trade secret information, I'd be a little bit leery about putting, business relations or office relations in the hands of a company such as Facebook. Because
Yeah.
you never know if they're going to monitor, say, like some new technology or software that your company is coming out with. And then, oh, miraculously, Facebook has this thing now, and you can't prove we stole it.
Yeah.
Um, and my other thing, too, is people work from home already, but I don't see many people really. It gives companies another way to put you on call 24/7. And
That's a good point.
with labor relations and how they've been, especially in the past few months, with people just saying, "Man, screw this! I don't want to deal with these abusive bosses or companies anymore." I don't
Yeah.
see a whole lot of people wanting to be, willing to adapt to, oh, well, boss just called me. I'll put on the headset for 5 minutes and then it turns into 30. And,
Exactly. Sure.
so,
Yeah.
but yeah, as far as trust goes, I mean, Facebook kind of lost a lot of trust in the past couple of years, especially when people figured out that their app, which I never downloaded because I just use Facebook on my PC, when I have
Yeah.
to. But they were figuring out that like they were keeping your microphone on.
Hmm.
I remember seeing there was a video from some comedian a couple of years ago who said that he did an experiment where him and his wife don't own a cat, but he just casually started talking about buying cat food.
Hmm.
Had never done anything else cat related in his life besides, probably watching a few videos of cats, which all of us do, whether we like
Sure.
to admit it or not.
Oh, I admit it.
And he said, "Oh, you have a famous cat."
Yeah.
But
Sadly.
anyway, so he and his wife would just casually every now and then just have a conversation about cat food, and he had never seen ads for cat food or cat related stuff before. And he said almost 12 to like 24 hours after he started it, his Facebook feed and other ad feeds through Google AdSense were showing ads for like Purina and Friskies and all those other
Yeah.
ones, which is kind of creepy. And I don't think a lot of people like that. And
Yeah.
I think that might have killed a lot of trust as well. But
Sure.
as I said, if I was a big company, I don't know if I'd want to have a third party contracted, say, virtual meta space for my
Yeah.
employees to use because you never know what's going to leak out and you never know who's paying attention to you.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
Well,
That kind of struck me a bit when I was watching the presentation video.
let me follow up with just real quickly the working from home aspect is definitely a double-edged sword because
Mhm.
on the positive side, yeah, you work from home. On the negative side, you're at work all the time. And that's a very important component to this. And let me say too, kind of a disclaimer here. By all means, for our audience, check out these things yourself.
Yeah.
A lot of the things that we're talking about here have been speculated about. They're suspected, and some things there's some smoking guns, and some things not so much. So by all means, we don't want to create any conspiracy theories here. By all means, research this stuff yourself. But in regard to what you were saying about talking about something, I recently learned about something, and this is true. The possibility that technology is there for an app that you don't even have to know your phone and to know your whereabouts. And let's say I'm on app XYZ and you and I are together and you ask me about cat food and we have a discussion about cat food. And what happens is that app that I don't have on my phone recognizes the fact that you and I were in close proximity.
Hmm.
And if you did a search about cat food, it presumes that we had a discussion about it.
Hmm.
Okay. And then it makes the next assumption that I also need ads from other places directed toward me about cat food. And these companies share the data from users. So it's possible that even though you don't have an app on your phone, that information is being used by that app to direct other things from other sources at you. So this is getting more and more complicated.
Well,
And
also
there's,
picture how weird would it be? Like, I know that you're not a gamer, but what if
yeah,
you suddenly started getting tons of ads about Nintendo Switch games or PlayStation games or any of that just from our interaction alone? Because I do look up a lot of that stuff. I watch a
yeah,
lot of
sure.
videos that are like reviews of games and things. So then suddenly it might assume that you're um, interested or that you're a gamer or whatever. When also that kind of wastes advertising dollars really because they're mistargeting based on what your friends are into. I'm friends with people who have very wide interests in a lot of things and
Sure.
and stuff that I don't even really care about. And so I mean I see every ad for say I don't know like L'Oreal shampoo that smells like rosemary or whatever that I'm never going to buy is kind of like misdirected and wasted advertising dollars, which is fine with me because I hate advertisers.
Sure.
My other concern with the whole work thing while we're on the subject is that now that you have this fancy metaverse thing where anyone can meet anyone anywhere,
Yeah.
what's to stop these companies from taking all these work from home people and going, you know what, it'd be cheaper if we just had somebody in the metaverse from South America or from Thailand or from somewhere else. So your nice work, cozy work from home job, as soon as they figure out how to replace you cheaper with somebody else, they're gonna do it, and you're out of a
Yeah,
job.
that's true.
So, and that's going to be a fun thing to watch for the next 5 years now that work from home has been more and more ubiquitous. Like, how many companies will stick with American workers rather than going cheaper elsewhere?
Yeah, that's true.
So,
Well, I'll tell you, getting back to the realities of Facebook, here's some things on a more practical nuts and bolts level without speculating about technology and where it's going to go and all these other things. There's some things about Facebook that I just straight up don't like. Okay.
yeah, same.
Let's start with a clunky interface. This is a company that has
Mm,
endless resources. And this interface is tired, it's dated, it's old looking. Sometimes it's slow. I just don't dig it. The other thing, I don't. It used to be that when you had different pages, you had separate timelines for each of them.
yeah.
Now it's hard to tell how you're interacting. You like something, and you believe you're liking it as yourself, but you're liking it as this other page. And then when
Or
you want to
suppose that your friend posts something, you don't know if you're posting on your friend's page or the
yeah,
advertiser slash groups page.
yeah,
And also, have you also noticed that, like, for every post of an actual human that it's been like 2 or 3 advertisements to it?
oh, really? Okay.
I've
I
noticed that. Like, it's pages you might like, which is an advertisement on its face, or like some company like blatantly advertising a product. I've noticed that. I'll scroll through and I'll have like 1 or 2 friends like sharing a meme or something, and then like
Mhm.
sometimes 3 or 4 advertisements
Okay.
for different stuff, and a lot of it's stuff that I've never looked up or talked about in my life.
Yes.
So I think that's another reason people are moving away from it, because people are getting more and more annoyed with the invasive ads, such as
Yeah.
like on YouTube where you have to watch the 30-second ad before you can watch a 5-second video. I mean, it does piss people off, and they do start to move away from it. I'm kind of one of them.
Well, I can tell you that the terms, getting back to small business, if this is really a tool for small business, advertising on Facebook is getting really bizarre.
Mhm.
You have to submit these ads. They might get declined for whatever reason, and sometimes it's not too clear why they got declined. It wasn't too long ago I was involved in a situation where in the verbiage of the post, I said, for more information about this, follow us on Facebook. I
Right.
felt pretty harmless thing to put on there, right?
Right.
Well, it came up as a low quality ad because I was soliciting followers. Well, all right.
Isn't that what you're supposed to do?
Yes,
What?
it's like the followers are to be obtained organically. Okay, well, yeah, I just find it odd that on a given platform, I can't mention that given platform and to remind people to follow me on that given platform without it being a quote unquote low quality ad.
Yeah, that's the
You
most
know,
organic grassroots way you can find followers with. Like, they stumble upon what you're talking about, say randomly, and then you
it,
tell them where to find you.
it'd be difficult if I said subscribe and every other person will get a free prize. That would be different.
Right.
Okay, this
Yeah,
is
that's
just
soliciting.
reminding people if you enjoy what we have here, follow us for more. It's just a little reminder, and it's just weird goofball things like that. Who needs it? I just there's a certain arrogance with that. We want to take your money, but we'll take it when you're good enough.
Right.
And when you're good enough and you're going to do it the way that fits what we do, that's what happens when a company has a lot of power.
Yeah, they
That's
just
what
kind of go, "You're going to kiss the ring and not use tongue this time, and then maybe we'll
Yeah,
consider your business."
exactly. So, all this being said, to kind of wrap this up with the Facebook part of what we want to talk about here today, and we're already 2/3 of the way through the show, but it's the idea that we have a major company that I feel the platform is in its waning days as a large driving force. I don't believe it's going to go away because, like you said, there's going to be just people there. It's going to be a wasteland of people putting the pictures of their backyard barbecue and their second grade birthday party and all these other things. It's still going to remain that to a degree.
Right.
But what it could have been in terms of some of the grandeur in the presentation of something that brought people together and did all these wonderful things. It's going to have to change because that opportunity has passed. The platform is getting old.
Well,
Okay.
another way too is that they can't really ever win because every time they do change the format or try and
Yeah.
change stuff around,
Everybody complains.
everybody
Change.
complains about it. Like,
Yeah.
oh, the world is ending because they put a sidebar of something, So,
Yes,
and
and
then people
that's
get used
legitimate.
to it and they stop complaining, and then everything goes
The-
back to normal.
Yeah, that's legitimate, and I understand that, but there also comes a certain aspect of you got to change and make the people change, or the platform isn't going to survive.
Right.
It's like Henry Ford said: "If I gave the people what they want, I would have given them a faster horse." Okay, and that's a true statement, and it's very much from the ilk of Steve Jobs and all these other people. Look, there comes a point when you have to make a change for whatever it is that you're doing to survive. And it's been very slow in doing that. And even what it provides, in my opinion, isn't the greatest in terms of what's available today, in terms of technology and the resources that they have. So they had to make a change. Okay, no doubt about it. The platform was getting to the age where something had to happen.
Mhm.
And before all was lost, they had to do a rebranding. Unfortunately, they did this rebranding at a time when it's going to be perceived as a life saving desperate Hail Mary pass because of all the controversies and everything else that's involved. I
Right.
do believe with Oculus in particular, they have a second life. This is a chance to really take things to the next level in terms of what can be possible on the internet in a lot of different ways, not just for gaming, but with virtual reality and all these other things. My only hope is they do it correctly.
Right.
Do it in a way that is above board, do it in a way that it's very clear to everybody who is using it what the terms are and what all the little nuances are about what you're doing and what's being done with that information. If they do that in a truly transparent way over the next few months, years or so, they might have a new life that we don't necessarily anticipate right now, but it is possible. Oculus, to me, my opinion, is their crown jewel. Okay. Beyond that, I'm not sure. I think that they have a trust problem,
Mhm.
and here again, that just comes with being transparent, and that comes with just being honest with your users as far as how you're using it. And let's hope they make the right choice. That's all I can say. Do you have any, just to wrap up the Facebook thing? Do you have any closing statements there?
Well, the only thing with the Oculus thing is that given what they were kind of showing as their concepts, there's going to have to be some advancement with the Oculus itself before they can
Sure.
implement a
Oh
lot
yeah.
of the stuff. I
Yeah.
mean, they were showing like one guy playing chess in a park and the other guy across from was holographic, and they were showing people like floating around a room in space or being able to walk around somebody's house. I mean, unless you're physically walking around with the Oculus thing on and say motion trackers, like it's not going to look like what they showed. And
Yeah.
also, there he was trying to imply that there'd be like kind of some sensory things too, but just wearing a set of goggles isn't going to do that. Like you're going to need some kind of brain implant or something like that to be able to show that. I mean, it was just I was watching some of this, so I was like, yeah, it looks cool, but I mean, and a lot of people are going to say, oh, we'll have this in like a year or so, but I mean, that's not really true. Like
Yeah.
full integration VR is still probably at least 20 to 30 years away. Um,
Well, I don't know. I don't know enough about it. I would really have to. I know how some of the technology works,
right.
and the only thing that's holding back some of the technology right now is it requires a great deal of horsepower that just simply is not practical to have. Like I said, with, let's say, demonstrating how your house might be laid out after it's built and having you walk through it.
Right.
That technology to be available on both ends is enormously expensive, and you need a great internet connection way beyond right now what most people have in their homes, and it just simply isn't there. But I think, I wouldn't underestimate how fast technology can grow. That I would not underestimate. I don't feel that technology itself is going to be that limited in a short space of time. What I am suspicious of is how Facebook and Meta is going to move forward with that technology, how they are going to implement it, how they are going to regain the public trust, and how they are going to change the warm fuzzies that you get over certain things. Like right now, TikTok has some warm fuzzies. They've crossed over the billion user mark,
Mhm.
and people really have replaced television with TikTok. They sit on their couch in the evening for 2 hours before they go to bed, as opposed to watching TV, watching TikTok. Okay. And that excitement, that warm, fuzzy feeling, this, I'm going to have fun doing this, has left that company. Nobody says, I'm going to have fun on Facebook tonight. It just doesn't
Right.
happen. So to get that back is where the skepticism comes in. I believe the technology is going to be there one way or another, whether it's in their hands or somebody else's. And I certainly hope it's not in one company's hands. I don't want it to be. I don't feel that's good for anyone,
Well,
including
Facebook
the
kind of missed the boat when YouTube got big too.
yeah.
Like when YouTube was
A lot of
rising, they
companies
should
did.
have put
Yep.
competing money into having a better video platform because their video platform is just dog crap, dude.
Yes, it
Like
is.
it's not good.
Well, that's what I was getting back. There's not too much I can say about it objectively as a user that I like about it as it
Right.
is now. So
I mean, half the time it like skips the searching for videos on Facebook is just about impossible.
yeah,
I
sure.
mean, the algorithm for searching it sucks. I mean, so they kind of lost the ball on that one because I feel like if they would have kind of tried to keep up with YouTube back when YouTube was getting really big, like they might have been a serious competitor for it.
Hmm.
So
It could have been here again. Like I said, it's going to be one. And what could have been, it's going to be one of those types of things.
hindsight,
Yeah, I know you haven't done a whole lot with Twitter Spaces, but I do want to talk about that. Twitter Spaces, I feel, you were talking about some of the void that's going to get left if there's a shift from platforms like Facebook, and I feel that there's going to be not, and
right?
I get misquoted all the time that I'm predicting the death of that platform, and I'm not saying that at all. Okay, but things change. You cannot ignore the power of TikTok, which is enormous. Okay. They
Mhm.
tried to compete with Reels on Instagram and other things. And I don't know. TikTok seems pretty darn big to me. Um, but one of the places that I feel business could go in terms of, business pages and things like that is LinkedIn.
Mhm.
And I feel that for some of the interaction, Twitter Spaces has the potential to be really big. I don't know what's going to happen with it, but for those of you who use Clubhouse, Twitter Spaces is very similar. Okay, you have a host, and I'm not sure, there's something around 10 or 11, counting or not counting the host, a potential of speakers that you can have, and then the listeners is just who's ever on Twitter and happens to run across your space and wants to listen to it can do so. And I feel for branding, most brands come slow to these new things. Brands typically like to go to places that are well established. So I don't know that brands are going to jump on this, but I feel they're going to come to it quicker than what they would normally. I've sat in on some really good Twitter spaces talking about marketing and things like that. Absolutely fantastic content. And the people that, of course, are using it now are the people who are the most serious about social media marketing and other things. As this becomes more widely used, more widely known about, is this going to be invaded by trolls and other things? That's one of the concerns I have. And one of the things that Clubhouse did, I feel too much so, is it was very restrictive in terms of how you could get on it. You had to be invited by another user. And then, the different rooms, as they referred to them, you had to get access to, and blah, blah, blah. I kind of feel that Twitter is going to have to do something in between, because the trolling and some of the things that have gone on some of those major sites is going to start to impact Twitter Spaces if it is under control. So that's one of the concerns I have. But if all goes well, for one thing, I was very impressed with the quality. In the space that I was in, the host was in Melbourne, Australia, and there were users in the United States, and then there were other users that were in the United Kingdom. And you're talking about a big swing in time periods here, time zones. My time zone was roughly 8 o'clock in the evening. The people
Right.
in Britain were, I don't know, something like 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning, and then the guy in Melbourne was 11 o'clock in the morning the next day. Okay, and the sound quality was fantastic. It was absolutely fantastic. I was really blown away by it. It seemed like everybody was in the same neighborhood. They all could have been down the street. I was really impressed with the sound quality of that. There wasn't any delay. There wasn't any latency or anything like that.
That's kind of
And
impressive.
it is. It's very impressive, and I was very impressed with that. So I do believe that, and a new feature. Now I'm not exactly sure how it works. I haven't checked it out yet. This has just come about, but you can also record the spaces. Now that gets into a touchy feely thing. You have to make sure everybody knows they're being recorded and all these other
Right.
things. But aside from that, the potential for what podcasters can do in terms of like, hey, I was on a great Twitter space the other day. Here's an excerpt of that, and blah blah blah. I believe that that's that those are all great tools, and I'm a big advocate, and I have been. I'm saying that audio content is going to be is growing all the time. It's podcasting is just part of it. You have the streaming devices in the home now, streaming devices in the car. You don't need a computer. You don't need a mobile device. You don't need this, that, the other thing. And I do believe the potential for using audio content is off the charts. And this Clubhouse thing, and I'm not sure what happened with Clubhouse, and it was huge last spring, absolutely enormous when people were still being restricted in terms of where they could go with COVID and all these other things.
Yeah,
I haven't
weird,
heard
but
as
I've
much.
never heard of it because I'm on the
I
internet all the time.
Okay, Clubhouse was like the thing there for a while, and that noise has kind of died down a little, and now we have the emergence of Twitter Spaces. And yeah, I would strongly recommend you getting involved with Twitter a little bit more, and checking out Spaces, because I do feel, you're one of those guys. You always got good opinions. You got good information, and I just feel that that's a possibility for you, to really latch on to and experiment with. I'm certainly going to do it. I'm taking my own advice. I kind of feel that Twitter Spaces is the latest shiny object to come along, and I referred to TikTok as that a couple of years ago. I said TikTok is the shiny object off in the distance that you can't ignore, and now it's like the sun.
Right.
Okay, and I don't know that Twitter Spaces is going to be that. Probably not, but I do believe that you can't ignore it, and especially somebody like me who's in the marketing business, my day job,
Right.
and creating media content, which is the other component of what I do with my other work. I don't believe that you can ignore something like Twitter Spaces. The potential is just too large. Twitter Spaces is something that I would definitely check out. And the other thing, just to wrap things up for our podcast today, I do have to mention that Spotify has reportedly surpassed Apple to become the biggest podcast provider in the United States. Spotify said that according to Edison Research and its own internal sources, it recently became the number one podcast platform. And in the United States, listeners, obviously that's a big field. The U.S. listeners use the most is Spotify. And this is
Mhm.
all according to TechCrunch. That's interesting because for the longest time, and I still believe it's so, that if you have a podcast, if you're not on Apple Podcast or what was then iTunes, you weren't anywhere. And to me, the fact that anybody who has an iPhone or an Apple device has Apple Podcasts right in the palm of their hand, I don't believe that you can ever ignore Apple Podcasts. However, the investment that Spotify is making into the podcast realm is very hard to ignore. They obviously have had some big podcast stars, Joe Rogan being one of them, and a couple of others. I don't believe that you can ignore that platform if you are a podcaster. But with that being said, here again, I'm going to come back to GoodPods for the indie guy out there who isn't competing with all the major companies that have gotten on board with podcasting. I really like my experience so far with GoodPods has been very, very good. My visibility on that platform has risen very quickly. So,
Oh, good.
any comments about any of that stuff?
No, not really. It doesn't really surprise me. Spotify's been getting more music content as well.
Yes, yes,
One thing I would like to see, like, going back to, how audio entertainment's kind of on the up and up is, I would like
yes.
to see more like old timey type, like radio dramas,
Oh, yeah, and
except
those are
in the
big
modern
too.
age. You
Sure.
don't really see that,
Mhm.
like my dad, like Gunsmoke a lot. My grandpa and my dad would trade like the show cassette tapes every time they saw each other. and it
Yeah.
was always interesting to sit and, back when TV was big, to
Yeah.
sit and listen rather than watch something and have to use your imagination. I don't
Yeah.
know. It kind
And
of blows my mind that nobody really does that.
yeah,
But
that's a good point. I feel that it's being touched upon. There was a number that I ran across doing spooky stories for Halloween.
right,
And I feel that storytelling in and of and by itself has experienced a renaissance in the last year or two. And I'm very glad about that because I do feel the spoken word is an art form.
right,
And true crime, in a lot of way, that category has done a lot for what you're talking about. And I feel that that's going to be developed more as real actors get involved more in audio content. And right now, the only time real actors are involved in audio content is when they're doing something really major, like for a commercial or animation or something like that,
right.
or audiobooks. Audiobooks now is where some of the real actors are. So I do believe that that is an open field. That is something that the right person just has to come up with the right formula or the right genre, and they're going to be good to go. So yeah, absolutely, that's a great point, and I'm really excited about what's happening with audio content. I feel the future is going to be very good for that, and I'm happy about that. Well, anyway, Jack, as always, it's always great to have you on the program. I'm so glad you've been with us on the podcast today. Thank you very much for being here.
Yeah, man. Sorry, it's been a while. Just
Yeah,
been
sure.
kind of out doing other things.
No, that's all right. Jack is one of our recurring co-hosts. We have a couple of them that come on every once in a while, and we're going to have another one in a couple of weeks coming up soon. Probably next week, I'm going to have a real interesting podcast because I have two humor writers, both of which have been on the program, in a singular fashion, and I had a hard time containing them. They're going to be on together. So that's going to be really cool. So, keep watch for that. That should be sometime next week, if not the week following. A lot of other great things happening with authors, a lot of great things happening with co-hosts, and some more commentary. If you missed it, I did a commentary last week on the Alec Baldwin situation. Tons of listens on that. And it wasn't a hit job. If you're here again, if you're new to the program here, this was a real evaluation of what could have happened on that set. I'm real happy with how that commentary turned out. I've had good feedback on it. And those types of things, too, have also given us a lot of traction here. So we try to have a diversified mix of content here on the Billy D's podcast. I never wanted to get pigeonholed as to just one thing. Everybody says you got to have a niche. Well, our niche is it's information, it's entertainment, it's current events, it's all those things, and we're very happy to keep the carousel moving and do all these different things with our audience.
It's the
Anyway,
Billy D's variety show.
it's the the variety show. That's a good one. Boy, that's a throwback. Yeah, variety shows. That's what TV needs these days. Maybe we need to return to the variety shows, having the bands and the comedy sketches and all that stuff.
Well,
So
they've tried, but
anyway,
it's called America's Got Talent, and it's garbage. So
oh, okay. Very good. Fair enough, Jack. He'll be back again sometime soon. And in the meantime, I'm Billy Dees. If you have a comment that you would like to share, you can direct it to us right here on Twitter at Billy D's. And the Billy D's podcast is available on most other social media, including YouTube and Facebook and all the others. So thank you very much for checking out our podcast today, and we will return next week.
see ya.
Yeah. Okay, for the people who are still with us on our live stream on the various YouTube, LinkedIn, and Twitter, that's pretty much going to conclude our podcast session today. The one thing I will do is, like I said, some of the comments, and I've noticed a few notifications here on the software that we've had some chatter on some of the other platforms. We'll go check those out in post and try to answer them and address them as best we can. And thank you very much for checking out our live stream today. And with that, I am going to close it out. Thank you very much for being here.